So mental health is a major theme for this Rotary year. So we're really happy today to have Dr. Tova Rubin, our speaker, to come and talk about sort of her approach to the science of positivity, I would call it. And I've heard this talk before. It's wonderful. I'm excited to hear it again. Tova's also this time going to be giving it a little bit more of a business focused twist. So any business people here in the room? I think so. It's a really good way of looking at your human resources in your family, your workplace, everywhere. So after 20 years of practicing psychology, Dr. Tova Rubin has learned a thing or two about why people struggle and what seems to help. She's put some of that down into a book called, quote, Wisdom from the Couch. And then she got off her own couch to share the really good stuff with you today. Warning, things could get a little musical. Now, I also want to say that she's also a volunteer, a hospice volunteer. So I think the service above self motto is something that is near and dear to her, which might make her a really good Rotarian. I'm just saying. All right, everybody, please welcome Dr. Tova Rubin.
Do I need to use the mic, or can you hear me pretty well? Is it better? Yeah, it's better.
Plus Zoom.
Plus Zoom people. Okay, am I looking in the right?
So do you want to make sure? Yes, that's good. Perfect.
So if I turn this way, is that?
You're perfect right there.
Great. Hello, everyone. I see some familiar faces. Bob, last time I saw you, where were we?
ACC.
Yeah, we're ex-racquetball partners. That's been before a pandemic, and then all of that sadly went away. And then I see Erica, our daughters. We both had the brilliant decision to name our daughters Yael, so we share that. And they're in the same school and friends, so that's really nice. And another familiar face. So thank you for having me here today, and I'm really excited to share a very important message with you. I know the title was positivity, but really I'm going to talk about the power of belief today. I've been putting this talk together, and I'm really excited because, as we know, there is a lot of stress in the workplace. Raise your hand if you think it's important to pay attention to stress in the workplace. Raise your hand as high as you can. A little higher. See, I already got more out of you than you expected. We're going to talk today about that, about how do you get the best out of the people you work with, because it's really hard, because work is hard, and it's not the work itself that's hard. I was recently in France, and they, bless you, and they have an expression there, you know, France is amazing except for the French. But the French are great, but I will say this.
Sorry, Nick.
The French are great. They were amazing. But the expression means work is great except for the people. It's really the problems we have at work almost always have to do with people and the relationships. And that's because, you know, relationships are hard. They're hard at home, and they don't magically disappear, those problems, when you go to the office. So the question is, how do you get the best out of the people that you work with? Not necessarily the best, but their best. How do you get people to show up, and you, as a leader, as a colleague, can get the best out of anyone? And I came to the subject, and David heard this before already, really from a personal place initially with my son. So when he was 4 or 5 in kindergarten, he wasn't learning to read, he wasn't learning to write, and we got him tested, and, you know, dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, attention deficit disorder, autism spectrum disorder. I mean, that's a lot of dissing for a little 5-year-old, right? And really now we know, you know, his brain was just different. But at the time, I come from a pretty academic background. I thought, this kid is not going to learn. That's what I thought, sadly. And I was very stressed and worried about it. And you know, because I was stressed and worried about him, guess how he felt? Stressed and worried, right? And all the educators were stressed and worried. And we worked, we got tutors, and we got every kind of program, you know, therapy and all that kind of stuff. And it was great, but he still wasn't learning to read, and he wasn't learning to write. And I was increasingly worried about him. And I really devoted so much to trying to get this kid more and more services, more and more. And the kid was exhausted and anxious and scared. Scared about his future because I was scared about his future. And then, sadly, it took me quite a while, but probably when he was about in 7th grade, after a meeting with all the educators, where everyone's like, this might be the year, but they've been saying that every year, I had an epiphany. And it kind of hit me, and it was amazing. And I thought, look around the world, people learn in so many different ways. This is such a great kid. He is happy, he is helpful, he is smart, he fixes anything that breaks in the house. He's the one who goes out when it's snowing and shovels without me asking. I mean, this is not a kid who's not going to succeed. I better start believing in him, because I don't believe in him and I'm his mom. How is he going to believe in himself? And I just changed the way I did things with him completely. I said, school, you guys focus on his learning. After school, we're doing all the things he's good at.
Right there.
Okay. We're going to focus on everything that he's good at. And we started doing, he's a theater kid. He did technical theater also. And he really started blossoming and being so much happier. And I just said to him all the time, I cannot wait to see what you're going to do. You are going to do amazing things. And in fact, he's now 26 years old and he's doing theater like design. And he's amazing. And, you know, it was really this idea that I had that, like, if I don't believe in him, how's he going to believe in himself, right? So I want to share a little bit of the science behind that, because I came to that intuitively after a while. But there's been really incredible research on that. In 1968, which is 2 years after someone here told me their dad joined the Rotary in 1966. Who was that? Yes. And 2 years after that, Robert Rosenthal, a Harvard psychologist, decided to do a study. And he joined up with Lenore Jacobson in San Francisco, and they went into a school, and they had this experiment. They said, we're going to test all the kids, and we have this test called the fancy schmancy who's going to bloom this year test. They put the word Harvard on it. And they said, but they really actually did IQ tests. But they tested all the kids and they told the teachers, here's a list. These kids this year are going to blossom. They're going to blow your mind. And these kids are not. Now, ethically, you cannot do this anymore, thank God. But at the time, they didn't have the same things in place to check that. So we have this very interesting study. So that's what they did. Their intervention was they came in, they tested all the kids, they told the teachers, these kids are going to blossom this year. And then they left for the whole year. They didn't come back. No other intervention. And they came back at the end of the year, and guess what? Those kids indeed blossomed that were on that list. They had over 12 points increase in IQ, which is more than a standard deviation. They had increased fewer behavior problems, better socialization, and the teachers were like, you were right, these kids blossomed this year. But there was a catch, right? Yeah. The kids were randomly assigned to the different groups. What does this mean? What was the deciding factor? What affected that change? Anybody?
The teachers.
The teachers believed these kids were going to improve. The teachers believed it. But what Robert Rosenthal said when he wrote this up is he said, this wasn't magic. The teachers believed it and it changed them. And he said there were hundreds and thousands of tiny behaviors that they did differently because they believed that these kids were going to blossom, and they created that change with their belief. It's called the Pygmalion effect. You may have heard of it before, but it's just astounding when you think about the implications. And what he said is people will rise or fall to the level of belief that you have in them. And we have seen this in the corporate workspace as well. As I started working on this topic, I have been interviewing people. I have an article in Psychology Today where I talk about people who said, I said, tell me about a leader, tell me about someone who believed in you. And someone who I went to grad school with came and he said, I started out, and he ended up leaving, and he is a tech guy. And so he did this tech job, he didn't love it. He applied to a job in something pretty different than what he usually did, but that he was interested in. It had to do with the interface between the technology and the user at Capital One. And he applied for the job, and somebody this boss, Leah, she said, you know what? You're just the guy. He said, how am I just the guy? I actually don't have any of the qualifications on the list. She goes, I feel something in you. I believe that you're going to do great in this job. And she actually said, I'm going to send you to this training. I want you to meet this person. They're going to be your mentor. He's been there 8 years. He is happier than he's ever been. She chose to believe in him. She saw something in him, right? And she said, this guy has something special. And I said to Larry, do you think that she's this way with other people or just with you? He said, everyone who works for her feels like she's the one who believed in them first. And so this is what great leadership can do. He's been there 8 years. He's so committed. He's so loyal to this company. And he's having a great experience. So belief is a cause. This is one of my number one things to say today. I'm going to have 4 things. Belief is a cause. It is not an effect. You know, a lot of people say seeing is believing. You see somebody do something great, you believe in them? No. Believing is seeing, right? You believe in them first, and then you're going to see amazing things happen. So that's my first one. Number 2 is belief is a choice. I'm going to show you. I'm going to walk around with this picture. What do you see here? Look closely. This is a drawing from over 100 years ago. It's called the duck bunny. See if you can see both the duck and the bunny. Can you see? Should I not leave this slide? Can everyone see it?
Show the video.
Yeah. Okay. This is the duck bunny. Look for a second. You'll see the bunny and you see the duck. Psychologists who were studying perception wanted to show that you can really look at something. You can't see them both at the same time, but looking at it, you'll see a duck. Looking at it, you see a bunny. What's my point? My point is that I could look at my son and see someone who doesn't read, or I could look at my son and see someone who could fix anything. Belief is a choice. Now, Malcolm Gladwell talks a lot about hiring and implicit beliefs. And this is really important, especially for diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace, okay? We do have implicit beliefs. Every single person does, whether you like it or not. And we have it to really prefer people who are more like us. And in hiring, we all think we're good interviewers. The research does not back that up. Malcolm Gladwell says over and over, you think you're good at it. And they said, actually, there's research, you know, in the NFL draft, and the people that they pay the most for and everyone's excited about do not end up doing better than chance in terms of being successful. But I say you don't have to predict. You don't have to predict success. You can create it. You can create it. And even Gladwell says that. He says it's not who you hire, it's that you give them the support and you give them the training they need. And then you will have the people that you want. So belief is a choice. Belief is a cause and belief is a choice. You can make a choice to believe in this person. And you can hire somebody for all kinds of reasons. If they bring diversity to your organization, and maybe they don't have those qualifications the way Larry did it, but you're making a choice to believe in them, and then you're supporting them. And you are changing your behavior in hundreds and thousands of tiny ways to convey to them how much you believe. It is incredibly powerful. So my third point, belief is a choice, belief is a cause. Belief is more about you than about them. And here's a story. There was a rabbi that I heard speak, and he talked about when he was in 2nd grade, he was a really difficult kid. He was that kid nobody really liked. He was annoying. He had self-awareness when he was a little kid. But he went into a 2nd grade classroom, and the rabbi who was the teacher said, "Oh, David, I'm so happy." His name was David. He said, "I'm so happy that you're here. Come sit. You're going to sit right here next to me." And everything that needed to be done that year, David was the one to do it. And he was the teacher's pet. He was the favorite. And he felt like $1 million. And it was life-changing for him. From there on, he actually wasn't that annoying kid anymore. And about 30 years later, he went to a conference, and this rabbi had become the school principal, and he was giving the keynote. And he said, when I was a young teacher, every year, I found out who the most difficult and annoying kid was. And I made them my pet. I made it my job to believe in them. And he sat there and he realized that was him. That was him. That was such a powerful decision He said, I'm going to take, and so this rabbi said, this is not about the kids. This is about me, right? Belief is more about you than it is about the other person. Belief is more about a choice you made of how to show up than it is about what your colleagues, employees, leaders are bringing to the table. So belief is a choice. Belief is an effect, is a cause, not just an effect. And belief is more about you, than it is about the other person. So now I want to read to you a paragraph. A friend of mine who was Army, I think somebody said they were Army.
There, tell him.
Yeah. So he wrote a little book about his experience in Korea. And about halfway through basic training, I reached the point of wanting to give up. By the way, his name's James Thompson. I reached the point of wanting to give up. The drill sergeants would look for weaknesses in an individual, then try to exploit those weaknesses. They found mine, the seemingly endless yelling. When asked if I wanted to go home instead of no drill sergeant, I responded, I don't know. After a few days of receiving extra attention, I was called into the office by SSG Robertson. I was not prepared for what he was about to say to me. You're a good soldier, Private Thompson, and I think you're worth saving. I want you to stay, SSG Robertson informed me. Yes, drill sergeant, I replied, amazed that he thought so highly of me. I walked out of his office that Sunday afternoon. I was forever changed. He had flipped a switch in my mind. I was no longer the person who had entered a few minutes before. After the talk with the drill sergeant, the pressure did not ease. It only increased. The difference was that I knew I could handle it, and I did. Do you all resonate with that message? Yeah. So belief is a cause. Belief is a choice. Belief says more about you than about them. And my last little demonstration. If when you were leaving today, I said, who wants $20? I'll give it to you. Raise your hand if you would say, sure. Yeah. If not, you maybe think I'm trying to be tricky, but I'm not giving anybody my money today. So, but you all understand $20, right? Okay. Now who would want it? Raise your hand. Same, right? Okay, well, what about? Now who would want it? I said it's dirty, it's wrinkled. Nobody has a problem understanding the inherent worth of money, right? Doesn't matter if it's stepped on. What about the inherent worth of a soul, of a person? Because we get stomped on, we get wrinkled up, people show up with their defenses, people show up with their anger. But what if you're the first person to believe in them? Those in the back can't see. What do you see here?
$100.
$100. You actually can get more out of them if you're the first person to believe in them because of all the things that happen to them. So be the first person to believe in them. Number one, belief is a cause. Number two, belief is a choice. Number three, it's more about you than about them. You're the first person to believe in them. You will be amazed at what you get. And in my last 2 or 3 minutes, I always promise a little music. Can I sit on here?
Yeah, that's
okay.
Great.
Yeah, sure.
So this is a little song that I wrote when my son graduated high school as a gift to him. I'm only going to do a short version of it, but it was my gift to him because when he graduated, and we couldn't believe that he got there, we did all our assignments together and everything. And he said, Mom, I couldn't have done this without you. And he gave me a rose. And I said, wow, it was harder the second time. And I'm not a musician, but I do like to play. As you cross this final threshold of your childhood years, and love your adventure towards some great career, pay attention to the smile and ignore these tears. Remember what we taught you through the years. Wake up happy, pray to God, don't follow the crowd. Share your food, don't be late, make your father proud. Save your cash, what you don't like, don't do unto another. Work and play, exercise, always call your mother. Wash your face and brush your teeth, and don't forget your sweater. Be kind by someone, and make the world better. Thank you. Meanwhile, I would be super grateful if you take a minute to do the feedback form. I'm going to stay. I'm not rushing out, so take your time with that. But anybody have any kind of questions or thoughts they want to share?
Also on Zoom, if you have a question on Zoom, raise your hand and we'll be looking at you.
Yeah, Swift's looking for somebody to join her.
She called and I said, I'm going to talk. No way.
Tova, I can start out the questions. First of all, tell us a little bit more about your interaction with the business community. And then secondly, tell us a little about your plans in using music and what you do. So,
thank you. Music has always been a part of what I do. I do an ethics workshop for therapists. That's a full 6-hour musical with 20 songs and stuff, because I think we learn more when we're enjoying ourselves, and there's no reason for it to be boring when it can be fun. We learn when we do experiential things. So in the business community, I've actually started giving a lot of workshops and talks and even a few keynotes talking really about this topic of belief, because it's so important and it makes such a difference. And it's, you know, it's really a mindset shift that leaders, and there are really steps that you can take to get there. It's not just like, oh, suddenly you decide I'm going to believe. You really have to work on yourself and learn how that manifests. What are those hundreds of thousands of behaviors? How can you make that choice? And so I really help people do that. In addition, just some consulting and executive coaching to really fun. Yes.
So first of all, thank you. You know, what you said is logical, it's feel good, it's the right thing to do. So it's the obvious question. Why don't all of us, any of us, all of us do it a whole lot more often?
Amen to that. No, I think it's a really fair question. I think it gets lost in the shuffle. We really seem to think that that people are more logical. We seem to think that staying in the realm of reason, saying, here's your job, and then expecting people to do it. But we forget that we are spiritual people, that we actually have a soul, that we need relationship and connection. And that when we are seen, we feel safer. This really hits the part of the brain. If you look at it from a neuroscience perspective, we have a fear brain, I say, and a clear brain. And the minute you're in fear brain, you really can't think straight. If someone is upset with you at work and saying, you're not doing this, you're not doing your job, you get into fear brain and you just can't be as effective. But if you get them into safety, into clear brain, you'll get so much more. But people don't naturally do it. We somehow, our own anxiety, like I did with my son, as bosses, as leaders, shows up at work. And when someone doesn't meet our expectations, our fear creates very often upset with them, anger, or looking for, let's just get rid of them and find somebody who can do this right? And we don't think that actually maybe we could do something different. It's just a natural way. We have a self-confirmation bias. I'm not doing anything wrong. If the problem is there, it's in the other person. And I'm saying, take back control, right? You actually can change things.
I hate to get controversial, but
please, I want you to get
Never
controversial.
Never party.
Love it.
There we go.
you know, Donald Trump is the exact opposite of what you're talking about. He is who he is, and chews you up and spits you out, and so forth. That's why I asked the question: can Donald Trump be changed? The Donald Trumps be changed?
I'm going to pass on that question.
We're a non-partisan organization.
But I will say this. And I'm not talking about Donald Trump, but I'm talking about all of us and people who are entrenched in difficult behavior patterns. If I didn't believe people can change, I wouldn't be a psychologist. But you can't change them. They have to want to change.
Yeah.
The only way change happens is that a person themselves wants to change. However, if you change yourself, you change the system. And when you change the system, everything changes in the system. It has to. So even though you don't have the power to change another person, you have the power to change yourself. And that will change the other person inevitably because you're changing the system. How that changes the other person is up to them. But you have a lot more power than sometimes we even harness ever. So I hope that's a satisfying answer. I cannot fix the other stuff.
Any other questions?
Great question. Great.
Any other questions? Well,
Yes, Stephanie
Oh.
has one on mine.
oh, Steph.
Hi, thank you, Tova. That was
Hold on, let's,
awesome. I
hold
don't know
on,
if
we
you
need to
can
get
see
that.
me, but
I stay looking
Hi
forward,
there.
even if,
that was terrific and very inspiring, I think, both in the professional and a personal setting. So my question, not to be a pessimist, because I very much agree with what you're saying, is then if the person doesn't rise to meet your expectations, how do you handle it? Do you continue to be a cheerleader, or how do you, respond? I would love to think that just believing them will enable them to reach your expectations, but I don't think that's automatically the case.
Stephanie, I love your question. And if you were in here, maybe you could see like a lot of people are nodding. Everyone's really curious about this answer. So two things. One is you said just believing, and I would take the word just out because it's not easy. Believing in people is not easy. It's not a just believe. It's a lot of work and it's a strategy and it has to be learned. But the other point is this. Not believing in them doesn't work. Believing in them might work. But one strategy doesn't work at all and the other works very, very often. So you have a choice. I'm not saying it works with everyone. If that were true, we wouldn't even be here, right? We're not machines, we're not robots. But the best chance you have of it working, this is the best strategy we have. And it doesn't work for everyone. And if it's not working, then you as a leader, and this is something I work a lot with people on, you need to find what it is in you that's responding to this person and learn and grow yourself. You can't change the other person, but you can change your strategy. If it's not working with someone, when my son was at the special school, I said, how do you teach math? And they said, however he learns. Maybe the person's in the wrong job. I worked with someone and she was a leader and I said, what do you do? She has a sort of no fire policy. She said, what I do is I find a better place for them in the company. I find something that plays to their strengths. I try. I'm not an idealist. I'm not, I hate toxic positivity. I don't mean this as a toxic positive, believe in everyone and it's going to be amazing. This is hard work, but the payoff is amazing, but it's not guaranteed. But not believing them is definitely not going to work, right? Stephanie, I hope that's a satisfying answer.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
Hear from Mark.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna have to do the intro.
Okay,
Thank
sure,
you.
yeah, so fantastic presentation, really enjoyed that. So you talk about the study that would no longer pass or the ethics standards, so they tell, the teachers are told one group of students is gonna thrive.
Mhm.
Did that study also tell the teachers that one group of students is likely to
Yes.
lag?
Sadly, and those students did indeed lag. Yes. Sadly, they did do that, and those students did poorly, and they were just randomly assigned to that group, which is heartbreaking.
Yeah, so belief works both ways. You can either increase in
You
performance
will
or you can
ri-
harm performance,
Right.
yeah.
What he said, what Rosenthal said is you will rise or fall to the level of belief. Thanks. Great point.
Bob, last question, and then I want to give away someone pass that. Last question.
Your questions are amazing.
Yes.
I love it. Thank you.
Tova's staying afterwards, so you can
Yeah.
ask more. Last one.
Great talk. My question is more of a comment. When was asked, when we expect improvement of another person, I heard it said that expectations are a premeditated resentment.
Yes,
Nice.
keep the expectations low and you'll be much happier in life, right? Yes.
So,
Thank you for that.
couple observations. Please continue filling out your forms. for
Oh,
Tova.
yes.
Couple things. It seems also that when you're believing in someone or trying to bring out the best of them, what if it doesn't work? I would argue that would probably make it easier to encourage them to seek other places of where their talents are better used. It makes it probably easier if you've actually given your best to that person to fairly say this isn't working and we need to move on. You're going to find somewhere else that you're better suited, that kind of thing. Probably makes that easier. Lastly, one of the quotes that I've heard before is the singing part. I love it because I think there's a saying that says, when you sing a prayer, you're praying twice. And so singing is a great way to get your message across. So I want to end now because we always have this, Carl is on me ready to hit the pong gong. I just want to give you this Paul Harris challenge coin, which you're going to keep in your pocket at all times. I'm going to challenge you next time I see you. Anyway, this has the 4-way test on it, which we didn't mention today, but you can read about it. And you are living up to the 4-way test. You are definitely giving service of self in what you do. I think we were very happy to have you here today to try to impress our North Bethesda folks with the great club that we have, and we had a great turnout. We want to thank the restaurant also for bringing out the extra food as a result. And we are ready to hit the pong gong at 9 a.m. Pong gong. That's according to her thing. No, good.
Nice meeting you guys.
Yeah, thank you.